Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator of the next session, Gordon Bajnai.
Thank you very much. Let me introduce my panel just as they walk on. Martin Kupka, Minister of Transport of Czechia.
Good afternoon.
Krzysztof Bielecki, former Prime Minister of Poland and currently the Chairman of the Partners Advisory Board at Ernst & Young. Then you have Willy Molterer. Of his many functions, he's the Chairman of the Board of GLOBSEC, but also former Vice Chancellor of Austria, but also Vice Chairman of EIB. And Marco Rosso, a partner and global head of business development at Meridiam, one of the largest infrastructure investors in the region. Please take a seat.
Thank you.
Well, from this introduction, you found out that we are going to talk about infrastructure. What a boring topic, you would say. Well, it isn't. It's behind everything that's happening in the world. Infrastructure is driven by the most important global megatrends today. Digitalization of the world and AI is one megatrend. The second one is decarbonization, energy transition. It's all about infrastructure. The next one is about demographic change in the world. From schools to elderly care homes and hospitals, that's all over there. And then the change of globalization, the realignment of supply chains in the world, it's all about realigning infrastructure, ports, roads, railways, airports, and decarbonizing that part of the world as well. So all these megatrends are driving an incredible amount of capital that is needed to be invested in infrastructure. The latest measure that the European Union alone will need about 800 billion between now and 2030 just to upgrade its infrastructure. And I have to say the EU is still in much better place than, for example, the United States when we talk about transport infra. But Europe is lagging behind in digital, so there are big differences. So a huge amount of capital is needed. Let me start this conversation in an unusual way, asking a question not to the dignitaries in the room, of which we have a number, 3 here, but start with the private sector. Because this panel is about public-private collaboration. And we often complain that there is not enough money to go fast enough in infrastructure development. So Marco, you represent one of the leading, if not the leading PPP investor, public-private investor in the region. Are you limited by money? Do you have enough money to invest here?
Thank you for putting me on the spot immediately. But the answer is, well, is super easy. There is more than enough money. There is more than enough money in the market. There is today a number of, almost limited number of players that have interest in infrastructure. The asset class is very, very attractive. Most countries have experienced already and have a track record, although very small, with PPPs or with private partner corporations. So there is a trust, and if you're an investor and you look around the world, today investing in Europe is for sure not the worst thing you could think of. So what is limiting us?
Yeah. So if it's not money, then why don't you put more money into the region? What holds you back? What's the bottleneck?
Let me be a bit confrontational here. So first, give us projects. Give us a pipeline that makes sense and that is not limited to day-to-day planning. Give us something that we can plan on for more than 3-4 years or for an electoral cycle only. Stop using private-public partnerships as the financing method of last resort. Mm-hmm. Make it a usus that you start looking at this, because otherwise you will not be able to procure the billions that you think have to go into defense on one side and the infrastructure gap that has to be filled, as Gordon was saying. Second, make sure that you learn from your experiences. Build PPP specialized teams from the good examples you have, centralize them in government so that all agencies, all ministries but also regional and local authorities can get there. And last but not least, use the possibilities that go beyond the financing markets. Use the EIB, the EU institutions to get beyond the money. It's making projects more secure, guarantees, second tier layers. This is what makes this liquidity available for you.
So private capital is available in abundance. That's not the bottleneck. The EU funds are gradually going down in the region, which was the typical source of infrastructure development in the last 20 years. Minister Kupka, Marko raised a couple of ideas. How does it look from your point of view in being responsible for the Czech Republic transport infrastructure?
I'm absolutely sure that for us, it's not opportunity to collaborate with the private sector, it's necessity. And we are definitely in the really hot phase of the preparation of a lot of really very ambitious projects, not only for the missing parts of highways in Czech Republic, but also for the modern high-speed lines. And also my government put on the table the decisions about the concrete PPP projects as a pipeline for the next years. And I can say that, for example, now we are also in the developed phase, or really very advanced phase of the competition for the concessionaire for D35, which is the alternative way which will connect eastern and western parts of Czech Republic, and it's the first alternative to the overloaded D1 highway. And I can say that it wouldn't be only one project, and now we are also working on the next PPP project for the railway infrastructure, which will be the connection between the center of Prague and the Václav Havel airport, and as well Kladno, which is the biggest central Bohemian city. And now we are working also on the next 6 projects for high-speed lines and as well for highways in different parts of Czech Republic. I'd like to underline that for us it's definitely necessary point for the next improvement of the Czech infrastructure. And I'd like to say that it's not only the necessity in this line, it's also something like the way how to rewrite the approach to the private capital, to the private companies in Czech Republic, because now is the new point, it's the sharing of the responsibility for the next economical growth in Czech Republic, and also for the necessary construction of the dual-use infrastructure in the current really very difficult geopolitical situation. And I see PPP projects as a really very useful step to the, I can say, better resilience of the Czech Republic and also the whole European Union. And it's also the key how to solve problems with the, I can say, infrastructure, which is, for example, in the Central European region and also in the Eastern Europe, not enough, not in the definitely final well condition.
Thank you, Minister. Before I move to Jan Krzysztof, just 2 important pieces of information. We use Slido in this discussion and in this conference, so if you have questions, please use the app. I will see them coming up here, and I will feed them into the conversation. Or just feel free to put up your hand if you have a question that you want to ask a question directly. The other one, you see an empty chair there. That's not the usual political trick that somebody didn't come to the debate. We are still waiting for Michał Baranowski from Poland, the Undersecretary of State in charge of the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology. He is delayed. Maybe there is something with the air control, air infrastructure here, but he's already on his way from the airport, so he will join us as we speak. But Jan Krzysztof, everybody knows you've been Prime Minister of Poland, but very few people know that you have first-hand experience with transport infrastructure, because when they let you out of the communist prison, you spent 4 years driving trucks in Poland in the 1980s. How has the infrastructure changed in the last 30, 40 years? And what are the priorities that a country like Poland, in your mind, should focus on going forward when they develop infrastructure?
Yes, but you correctly pointed out that I'm a very old man, so it means that I belong to the old good times when life was easy, was peaceful, and Poland benefited enormously from inflow of funds from the EU. So every third zloty was spent on infrastructure. So for truck drivers now life is beautiful because you have motorways everywhere, bridges and whatever. And that was a very successful story for Poland. I think also for the region. No, I think our road system is a bit more modern than in Germany. Sometimes that's of the opinion. But the problem is that it's not enough. And today, we are not living in the peaceful environment anymore. And every day you have more and more evidence that we should look at the same maybe topic, but from different perspective. And I think you mentioned already, you said dual use. Oh, yes, Minister, that's exactly one of the buzzwords we have to practice, but we have to understand that you cannot solve the problems of the future with the yesterday's solutions. That's why I think somebody anonymous asking about the regulatory system of the EU is absolutely correct. If you ask about the regulatory system in my country, it also could be much better. And again, going back to dual use and to military sector, let's ask a few questions which US asked not that many years ago, 10 years ago, when this Unit X was established, this Defense Innovation Unit, because they challenged everything. And that's my only point which I would really like to emphasize. They, in order to change mentality of people of Pentagon. Of course, in Pentagon, people are not that smart as in my country, but nevertheless, you know, of course, I'm joking, but they introduced completely new approach to procurement.
Yeah.
And procurement probably for the private sector is the most beautiful experience. Few years instead of few weeks. So they completely changed the procurement. They introduced startup approach to the project. So quickly you move it fast and fail fast as well, because not everything is a success story. If you have this famous mention by Minister dual use, don't speak only about drones, but speak about cybersecurity. This is exactly what is dual use and is so important. Or you can also speak about AI. So, but for that purpose, you need different people, different units, in order to introduce competition within the old structures. Otherwise, if you give it to the bureaucrats, they will kindly destroy everything. And last sentence, I have a very strong argument for that. Six months ago, maybe a little bit longer, I was involved with some, very old people who used to work for the EBRD in discussion whether there is a need for rearmament bank in Europe, in EU. So based on the experience of EBRD, we suggested that maybe it's better to establish a very quick unit, new unit, built from the scratch. We promised to deliver it in less than 6 months, to put a new institution built from the scratch, and then provide financing and competition also for that kind of services. And 6 months are gone, the project is kaput. The old fantastic institutions, including, I'm pointing in that direction, EIB, they said, we can deal with this, and let's wait and see what is the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Let me announce that Undersecretary of State Baranowski just arrived from the airport. Welcome. We have a chair for you. Thank you for coming in a haste.
Yeah, great to see you.
Please have a seat.
Dzień dobry.
And we'll have a few questions and then turn to you in a minute. We were discussing one topic in the last questions, which was dual use of infrastructure, i.e. military and civil use of infrastructure and what kind of developments that means. Willy Molterer, among many functions, was the vice president of the EIB for many years. He's not speaking on behalf of the EIB in this forum, but he has all the knowledge of infrastructure development across Europe. And very recently, Willy, the EIB changed its mandate and included defense financing, which is a major revolution. How do you see this, and how can this help the region in particular?
Well, I would say finally, EIB did this step. It was a courageous and a necessary one. And to be honest, it's not the final one, because the sheer need that is ahead of us is, I would say, unlimited, which means the scope of activity should be broadened, definitely permanently. And I tell you why. If you put the figures together, that is in Letta, in Draghi, in Niinistö's report, and also in von der Leyen report, you will end up by, I would say, 1 to 1 trillion euro a year for the years to come. If you look into the realities of budgets, so they are going to be restricted or better spent for defense and other issues. So that means the gap is widening, which means we need exactly what you have said, access to this private capital. My experience, and this is the reason why I'm starting here, is I was running this famous European Fund for Strategic Investments for 5 years as managing director of that. And the target was, let's incentivize 500 billion euros investment by crowding in private capital. And the interesting thing, this was done by Jean-Claude Juncker on 3 pillars. First is, what's the legal and regulatory environment? There is room for improvement, serious one. Second, it is the advisory pillar. That means you have to get knowledge if you go for PPP, which means you need to train the bureaucracy, you need to train the experts in designing projects, because the design of a project is a fundamental precondition for private investors to go into. It's not the revenue just, it's the quality of the project, also the legal dimension. And the third is the financial pillar. And what we did is quite interesting. It's forgotten already. We had a guarantee, EIB had a guarantee of 33 billion euros, incentivizing 500 billion. And we finally managed within 5 years more than 500. It was 540 or 50. Out of this guarantee so far, the guarantee call is less than 1, some 800 million. The rest is still a valid guarantee and available for the private sector, which means it was more than 400 billion crowded in from the private sector. And it was exactly what you have said. It was about the quality of the project and to have a professional machine behind, which was called EIB, and the guarantee from the budget. So this is the fundamental design what we should go for. And I think there is, I would say, many projects. They could be developed, should be developed, and I love your approach, Gordon, to broaden the scope of the definition of infrastructure. Include social infrastructure and all the likes. And you will see there is so many opportunities in front of us if we stick to this idea to have the legal environment properly done, to have the advisory capacity properly done, and to have financing that's based also on public guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
So, Secretary Baranowski.
I can't agree with you.
You can't agree.
No, I can. No, because this is impossible. When we look at the traditional projects, then you can use traditional banker who will go through the traditional procedures, evaluate them, and find the risk assessment facility, blah, 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 and then after 6 months or maybe 1 year, they will make a decision. When minister speaks about dual use, we are in the new land, in the new territory. And the worst thing which could be done is that EIB now scared a bit that we are not doing defense, which we were supposed to do 10 years ago, not yesterday, 10 years ago. Now we want to grab this territory in order to take control of everything. And then I can already imagine how the procedure will be, defined by the EIB, how quick the process will be, and how decisions which are based on the completely new, innovative way. Yeah? Can you imagine that EIB will accept the startup approach to the projects in the military sector? Or?
Definitely yes. Okay. Definitely yes. But I'm not speaking on behalf of EIB, to be honest. There is somebody else that should define. But based on the experience I have, we made decisions within 6 months. This was the average period of having a decision, starting the accessing the EIB and finally having an agreement with us.
So let me ask Secretary Baranowski, keeping the ball in Poland, but with the current government. We were discussing dual use. We were discussing infrastructure. The German government announced 500 billion for infrastructure and another similar amount for defense, but they say 30% of the defense budget will also be infrastructure for dual use. So Poland is probably the strongest military spender in Europe. What does it mean for infrastructure there?
Great. Well, first, let me say how happy I am to be here with you at GLOBSEC and on this fantastic panel. I'm late because of the flight delay, and I think it was Prime Minister who was talking about Eurocrats. I was flying from Brussels, so the flight infrastructure, the infrastructure in Brussels was not good enough to get us in time. But I was listening to the panel on the way from the airport, so I'm actually all caught up, and I hopefully can connect to some things that have been said. So it's we should certainly broaden the perspective of what is infrastructure. On dual use, there is an aspect, very important aspect of also military mobility, something that we have quite a bit developed over the past years. Many of our Western allies need to develop even further. It's very good to see the high number in Germany as well. We are in the midst of developing this big solidarity hub that will have airport and train connections. It's actually going to be a public-private partnership as well, which will be key for our economy, but it will have also a military mobility dimension. But I'm also glad, and I think it was Minister who was talking about the dual use and the infrastructure going beyond the traditional one, also into the digital area. That's clearly something that is good for our economies, but it's critical for our security as well. And Prime Minister Bielecki was talking about the idea of the rearmament bank, because I think as we are in such a geopolitical moment, right? There is another war on our doorsteps this morning as well. We should be thinking more and more of security as our security infrastructure. And this is something that will keep not only our society safe, but our economies prosperous. So I think this is really critical that we have more of public, but also private money going to this. And I will finish on this, but another model to look at this is some of the developments in Silicon Valley with new defense companies that are actually using VCs, so actually not like a lot of private money, and are very successful in developing new military technologies, something that we should be doing in Europe as well.
So can I just ask back first to Marco and then come back to the minister, is public-private cooperation is often politically difficult, because the public opinion often believes that private money in public infrastructure is controversial, it will make things more expensive than it should be, etc. And also there are sometimes populist politicians go and say, oh, the public use of infrastructure goes to cigar smoking bankers and cutting dividend slips. Marco, the money you're investing, private sector money, what kind of money is that? Where is it coming from?
Actually, it's almost for its entirety pension funds and insurances. So we are, in a way, taking the money from people that is working hard and are promising to give it back to them after a certain period of time. Our funds are looking at 25, 30 and beyond years' time. So, in fact, we see that infrastructure becomes interesting for long-term investment the moment that you have a perspective. You can have moderate returns, but for a long term and for, let's say, with a certain security. So I think that the challenge here is, again, not to be distracted by the discussion of, well, the state pays 3%, why should we pay 6% for something that the private is making? But just to be, again, very, very controversial, ask the German government if they wouldn't have preferred to have a PPP for the Berlin airport with 2.5 billion, which was the fixed number that the private would have been doing, instead of paying 7, 8 billion and maybe not even be completely ready. It's a cost and benefit analysis that has to take into account that the private, especially when you are under pressure to deliver under high time thing, is not about the money alone. It's development expertise. It's accountability for a long term. It's going and planning and discussing with you what is the final service that you want to have. It's not about construction. Is it what do I want? What is the problem that I need to solve there? And if I might, I see that most of the problems we have and the failures we have is because it takes us too long time to decide, can we do it? Are we doing it? How are we going to do it? And therefore, the only successes, or very much 90% of the successes, have been in transport. But today we need to go beyond transport. Yes. There are examples in healthcare, in education, in transmission. We are talking about defense, but how do we think we can get resilient and autonomous and sovereign and protected from external shocks if today our transition network of energy in Europe is really, really bad? We have, and this is where regulation is killing. We cannot build a transmission line from north to southern Germany in less than 15, 20 years. I mean, this is where we need to excel. We need to have a common view, a common idea, and commit to do something. Then the private capital will be there and will help, not only with money.
Just allow me to...
Minister,
and then you. So, Minister, we had a question from the floor as well. What is your opinion about over-regulation of the EU environment? How does it look in the Czech Republic? You have recently been very successful with private-public cooperations, which is a big change in the Czech Republic. How did you achieve that?
I can say that, there are barriers in the approach of society to the public-private partnership. It could be, and it's why we really need to have the successful stories. And the previous one in Czech Republic, which was D4 highway, and it was successful story. And it's really strong support for the government and also for the politicians to bring the new projects in this kind of preparation and process. I agree with you that over-regulation of the EU is the problem, especially when you compare the current situation and current opportunities in the European Union with the other corners of the earth. But I can say that we have also our own homework in Czech Republic, and I can say that now we have definitely a successful Construction Act and also Linear Infrastructure Act, which have opened definitely new opportunities to, I can say, to simplify and also to have faster processes in Czech Republic. And I see this as a prerequisite for the next improvement of the Czech infrastructure. And I can say that I agree with Wilhelm because I'm absolutely sure that we also need the really high expertise for the process of PPP. And it's also about the trust of the society to all these new projects. And we are in a very close cooperation with EIB and EBRD, especially for this expertise in this area. And now we have also the specific small department, which is the center of expertise and the center of excellence for the specific process of the preparation of PPP projects. And it's only, I can say it's only one way how to prepare more than 2, more than 3 new PPP projects.
Just a question on this, and then I'll come to you just to reflect. One, Marco earlier said that the money they invest is actually pensioners' money, future pensioners, pension savings. So the money that, any profit that is generated on a public-private investment will flow back into the future pensions of people. That sounds like a good deal. But Poland and the Czech Republic, by the way, Hungary as well, we are not members of the Eurozone. We have our own currencies. To fund these projects, you often need local currency. Do you allow your pension funds to invest zloty or Czech koruna into bonds of projects that could finance Polish or Czech roads? I don't know the situation in the Czech Republic.
We have involved these possible funds from the pension systems or for a specific insurance system for the pension. It's private money.
It's a regulatory question.
Private tools. But I can say that it could be also very useful for the future. But we don't see as a problem to combine Czech crowns and euros also in all other PPP projects. And I can say that we have structure for this combination. It's no problem. It's, for example, 1/4 of financing these projects is from Czech crowns and 3 parts from the euros.
Marco, you wanted to comment on this?
Yes, I agree. We are one of the partners in the D4, and I confirm that we were able to co-finance. You know, part is in euro, part in Czech krona. It has also to do with where you source your construction, your capex. But for the future, if you go for high-speed rail, we are talking about 300, 400 million for the D4. High-speed rail will be 3 billion. That will be not so much of a problem of finding the kronas, but of finding a competitive moment in which you have more than one person in the market. So I'm just saying, and sorry if I being also on the bad side of the private investment in Poland, I can say that there with BGK being the development bank that is used to funnel funds under the state interest, but also PFR being a fund that is looking directly into investing in infrastructure, looking at the Slovaks that has just amended their law to allow the pension funds to go for alternative funding or infrastructure funds. That is, I think, the future, and it's a switch because it is really a virtuous circle and cycle. You invest in your own country, you take the upside that usually the public is very reluctant to see to go to privates, and you solve one big part of the equation. So this would be my recommendation.
So let me ask also the Polish side, the Undersecretary and also Prime Minister. Maybe you start, Prime Minister, on your comments and then go to the Secretary of State.
We have 11 minutes left, and you asked 2 excellent questions. First was related to why do we need private sector, except smoking cigars and entertainment. And the answer is very simple. This is what already I raised in the first round. Pentagon is the best example that we need private sector for innovation, because Pentagon was not able to adjust to the modern war which is taking place. And that's why they need Silicon Valley mentality and approach to innovation in order to modernize quickly the military. So that's first, that they bring innovation and they bring also the stewardship to the existing set of rules. This is what exactly EU administration would really badly need it. And the second also important issue, which is related to your next question, is the private sector is also needed for money, because I cannot, Minister, believe that you can be long, I mean 20 years long, on Czech krona. That sorry to say, but Forex risk would force us to go for the euro transaction. Or somebody will provide the Forex risks in order to get that long financing for some of the projects. So we need some risk procedures, but also we need private sector money to leverage the existing available capitals, for example, in Poland. Mm-hmm. Because you spoke about pension funds, yes, but when I look quickly before arriving here at the numbers, how much is the life insurance in Poland and how much from the life insurance you can move eventually to the fund could be leveraged by the pension funds from United States or Canada, and so the numbers are better. But to go on the own money from the Polish insurance companies, life insurance, would be not enough for the scale of the projects we discussed before. So I agree with you.
Thank you.
Finished.
Secretary of State, can you also reflect on this, but also we have two questions on Slido which kind of belong together. What hindering the adoption of PPP, and then mentioning Rail Baltica, and the next one talking about Chinese transport products which are so much more efficient and technologically so much seem to be superior to what we have here today. So what are the bottlenecks to be as efficient as, for example, the Chinese?
So let me be honest that I'm not enough of an expert on how China is doing this, except I know that they have a lot of money and a single decision point that allows that kind of big investments. That's what I think.
But
so
we started with saying technically the money is all there in pension funds, insurance. So how do we connect it?
That's right. And I actually want to put one other source of money on the table, and it seems that really money is not the problem. I'm currently negotiating with a foreign investor who would like to invest in large infrastructure projects in Poland, billions of dollars, or euros, whatever, or zlotys. Then it's even bigger billions. That's a little bit more edgy. You know, we cannot do critical infrastructure this way. But there is really a flood of interest. So I think we just need to we do need to, as governments, here speaking to myself, although I'm not responsible for actually building anything, I'm responsible for talking with foreign investors, be more courageous, more open to have more money, also investment coming also outside of even EU borders.
Gordon, you raised a question which is absolutely key. That's the question of acceptance of PPP type of financing, public perception. And there are three arguments I think we have to really invest into. First, time matters. If you look into the perspective what is needed, it is needed within an extremely short period of time. PPP, private capital, is instrumental to shorten the time to make things happen. Otherwise, we can't do this in this expected period of time, first. Second, it's not totally clear that everybody from the public sector is happy, what I'm saying now. My experience is that if you have private partners in a project, the quality of the project will increase compared to have just public management behind. The quality is increasing. And third, you should not underestimate what you have said, the innovative effect of having PPP. But it's not just for the startups. The innovation is also for the administration. I have to tell you, my experience is if you have a PPP project, the learning curve of administration is a serious one and an important one. That means innovation is there, not on the business side just, but also on the policy and on the administrative side.
Procurement.
Which means, for me, we have
Procurement, yeah.
absolutely procurement and the likes. We have to invest way more into the, I would say, telling the story right. And this is something where also the policymakers do have a huge responsibility. Time, quality, and innovation.
Thank you. Now we are running into our last 5 minutes. There was one question which is very specific around connecting with the Ukraine. It's the last question. I should probably ask Poland, because you are probably the most exposed to that question.
Well, look, the way I would answer this question is a little bit in a future tense, right? There is and will be a great opportunity in rebuilding Ukraine, especially when we have a just, stable, and peace. But we should be starting on this. In July, I think 80 ministers will be meeting in Rome for the Ukraine Recovery Conference. Poland raised its hand to host the next Ukraine Recovery Conference. You know, a lot can happen in a year. We are all waiting still in a sort of starting blocks, so to say. But when this moment comes, because right now, actually, I've been dealing with this a little bit in a think tank world as well, the governments are more willing to invest. For private companies, for bigger, you can comment on this better, I think it's the security situation is just insufficient. But the moment we have a clear, stable, and just peace, projects like this, including infrastructure that connects then this huge country of Ukraine, would be very valuable.
Thank you.
But I think it's a good question, what conditions are necessary for private sector to do that.
Thank you. We have, in the remaining 3 minutes, I'd like to ask one question from each of you. It's about priorities, the number one priority, and you will have about 30 seconds to answer. Minister, let me start with you. What would be your, if there is one thing you would like to be remembered for as the transport minister, what would be your wish come true in terms of a project or a new law or a measure for the Czech Republic? What's the top priority that you would like to sort out?
I'm absolutely sure that it's the vision about the finalizing of the necessary network of high-speed lines and as well highways. And now we have the concrete certain date, and it will be the 2033 for the finalizing of the fundamental highway network and also the preparation of the whole network of high-speed lines in Czech Republic. And I really hope that not only the plans and projects, but also the conditions for financing these new projects, it could be, or it is, my priority in my role as a Minister of Transport. And I can say that it's also necessary to say that the cooperation with the private sector, it's definitely also the certainty of the quality, the certainty of the time, and definitely all projects should be finalized in concrete date. And I can say that the last one, it's also the innovative approach to all these new projects, because all these PPP projects will be built in the mode of design and build. And it's the area, it's the space for the innovation from the private sector.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jan Krzysztof, in 30 seconds, a bit different question to you. If there is one thing that you would like to change, that should change in regulation, in behavior, in bureaucracy, in finance, in projects, what would be the most important change that would help infrastructure?
That would be approach to dual-use projects, because I strongly believe that we have to reinforce defense capabilities of European countries and take it really seriously and stop enjoying time and really think about the serious resilience capabilities. For that also you need dual use, and it goes from cybersecurity to AI and to drones, and you should go at the pace how it was introduced in some a little bit faster countries than the EU. If not, then you would be fighting with the old machine guns and tanks and heavy artillery, the war, which is already played in a different way. You know. Hopefully, we would not face any serious conflict in Europe, but the case of Ukraine and a scale of catastrophe which is taking place there, with definitely 1 million people dead, gives us that the deterrence is the most important issue, with due respect to highways or trains or whatever. You have to regain deterrence capability if you want to really enjoy time a little bit longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Willy, 10 seconds. What would be the #1 recommendation in terms of financial solutions?
My main recommendation would be listen what the business people are telling you and take the opinion of the business sector at least as important as you take the NGO's opinion on board.
And then make
or
it compete.
Even put it a bar higher. Because in the long term, it's simply the economic strength that decides about our political weight. And it's about the readiness to invest into defense. And my very last sentence as an Austrian, I would love to see Austria as a NATO member.
Ooh.
Wow, that will be in the highlights of the
That
project.
has to
Like
be
that too.
confidential.
Marco, one thing that should change for you to allow you to do more projects in the region.
Cut down the time in which you think of how to do these things in terms of engaging with the private sector. I could not say it better than Willy said. Hear us out, and please, we are not here just to exploit you. We feel the same urge. It's our place to live as well. We need to be strong. So let's do this together.
Thank you. And the last 10 seconds, Secretary. What would be Poland's priority, #1, in the coming years?
Honestly, a qualitative change, upgrade in our defense industry. We are working on this. The money is on the table, the interest, the threat, both as Europe and as Poland, we need to step way up and quickly.
Strong finish. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.